30 minutes after my granddaughter's touching message, an incredible transformation was revealed. Jack Thompson sat on his worn-out porch, staring into the distance as gray clouds gathered over the small Midwestern town he had called home for more than 60 years. Just then, his phone chimed, shaking him from his reverie. As he opened the message from his granddaughter Lily, his heart raced with anticipation. "Grandpa, you changed my life. Remember how you inspired all of us?" The words struck him like a bolt of lightning, igniting memories of youth, laughter, and success, but also awakening a buried sense of despair. He had spent years educating students, fostering critical thinking, and nurturing dreams, but now he felt like an ancient relic, overshadowed by a rapidly evolving world. Jack's mind spiraled with conflicting thoughts. Was he still relevant? Could he bridge the gap between the students he once inspired and this technology-driven society? The weight of financial struggles loomed over his family, tightening the noose of fear that he would become a burden, another voice lost in the cacophony of modernity. He hesitated, considering how far removed he felt from the classroom, a space that once flourished with vibrant discussions and explorations of history. Now he doubted his ability to connect, his voice overshadowed by streaming screens and a curriculum shaped by shifting priorities and budgets. As he contemplated his next move, an overwhelming sense of frustration gripped him. The school he loved had changed, strangled by budget cuts and top-down mandates that limited what teachers could offer. Jack's heart sank as he remembered the bright faces of his students, now strangers, ensnared by inequitable learning conditions. Did he have the energy to fight against this systemic neglect? He wrestled with the internal battle of wanting to make a difference versus the paralyzing fear of failure. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Jack's fingers trembled as he considered reaching out to former students, hoping to rekindle those connections that had once brought him so much fulfillment. But as he thought about the challenges ahead, a sense of dread filled his soul. What if they had forgotten him? What if they had moved on, flourishing while he remained stagnant, stuck in an echo of better days? Each potential rejection felt like a tightening knot in his chest, suffocating his resolve. His mind turned back to Lily's message. It sparked a glimmer of determination, but that flame was dimmed by doubt and a gnawing fear of inadequacy. The possibilities loomed overhead, both thrilling and terrifying, like a storm ready to break. He could champion change, loosen the grip of inequity one step at a time, but what if the attempt led only to disappointment? Moments of potential joy collided with memories of isolation, leaving Jack standing at a precipice, the kind of uncertainty that sent chills down his spine. As he stared at the sky, the clouds darkened, mirroring the tumult within him. He was on the cusp of a choice that could shape the rest of his life, a choice that might reveal or shatter his legacy forever. Doubt hung in the air as Jack stared out at the storm brewing on the horizon, a reflection of his internal tumult. It was in that very moment, confronted by the swirling clouds, that a flicker of resolve emerged amidst the chaos. Could he still make a difference? Perhaps, just perhaps, it was worth the risk to try. Jack took a deep breath and pulled out his phone again, shaking off the remnants of trepidation. He opened a blank message, contemplating who to reach out to first. A former student, a fellow teacher, someone who had shared a classroom filled with hope and ambition. With each passing moment, doubt began to crystallize into purpose, and he recalled the names of students who had transformed during their time learning under his guidance. Their successes, big and small, came rushing back. Lily's message embedded itself deeper in his mind, igniting memories of passion, growth, and potential. His fingers hovered over the keyboard as he typed cautiously at first, but the words soon flowed like regretful confessions spilling onto the screen. "Hey, it's Mr. Thompson. I've been thinking about how life has changed for all of us. I'd love to hear what you're up to these days." He sent the message, heart racing at the thought of what might come next. Minutes turned into hours, and with every buzz of his phone, anticipation mingled with anxiety as responses trickled in. One by one, former students replied, some excited to reconnect, others apologetic for their absence, a few sharing snippets of their lives that revealed vulnerability, growth, and resilience. Jack felt a surge, a reminder that connection could transcend time, that once-filled classrooms had not entirely forgotten their passionate teacher. As conversations unfolded, Jack found himself reflecting on his teaching methods, the spirited debates, exploratory projects, and those moments when he'd witness a light bulb turn on in a student's eyes came rushing back. It dawned on him that he was not just an educator, he had been a catalyst in countless transformations. If he could ignite flames of curiosity in those he taught, perhaps he could fan the sparks within himself once more. He started to plot a way back into the educational landscape he once cherished. The fear of feeling irrelevant cast a long shadow, but alongside it, a sense of clarity emerged. He considered how he might use technology, something he had initially feared, to forge connections, share insights, and even foster learning. If the world was pivoting into the digital space, perhaps he could be among those leading the charge, guiding young minds in an ever-changing landscape. Jack's thoughts spiraled into ideas about creating webinars or virtual discussions where his former students could gather, share their experiences, and even connect with each other. The vision illuminated his spirit, a pathway through the fog of despair. He could transform the fear of obsolescence into a vibrant culmination of wisdom and learning. However, as the sunset illuminated the gray clouds with hues of orange and purple, the brilliance was undercut by a piercing question. Would his life experiences resonate with a generation intricately linked to technology and social media? Would they find value in his words, in the wisdom he was eager to share? The uncertainty gnawed at him, but as night fell, Jack understood that the struggle for relevance was a testament to his commitment to growth, not just for himself, but for those still searching for guidance. With renewed determination, Jack stood up, ready to embrace the challenge. He would bridge the gap between the knowledge he had cultivated and the needs of a new generation. But first, he would need to confront the fears of failure that had shackled him for too long. The time had come to face both his doubts and the changes the world had ushered in, to prove not just to himself, but also to his students that transformation was a two-way street. As Jack took a deep breath, he knew his journey was just beginning, set against the backdrop of an unsuspecting night sky filled with countless uncharted stars. The following day dawned overcast, a fitting continuation of Jack's emotional turbulence. He brewed his coffee, the bitter aroma wrapping around him like a comforting embrace. This was his moment to embrace the vulnerability he had been avoiding. Over the last few hours, he had dismissed self-doubt, wrapping himself instead in hope, much like he had for his students all those years ago. He opened his laptop, the light illuminating his face while revealing the stark stillness of his surroundings. If he was to seize the momentum from his messages, he needed a plan. Jack stared at the screen, his mind drifting to the last conversation with Lily, whose trajectory had shifted after attending college. Her enthusiasm for learning was infectious, and Jack couldn't help but wonder what having her on board could mean for his visions of virtual engagements. He started typing an idea for a first webinar titled Rekindling the Spark, Learning in a Digital Age. It felt adventurous, even reckless, but he craved that exhilaration. What could he bring to the table? He tugged at his collar, trying to shake off the tightening clamp of insecurity. While dragging his thumb across the trackpad, Jack recalled feedback from students during his years of teaching. What mattered to them most? The connections, the dynamic discussions, the encouragement to think beyond their immediate reality. He could recreate that engaging environment digitally, but he was plagued by a gnawing concern. Could his old teaching style translate to a screen? As images of his past flooded back, he felt a compelling urge to dig deeper into this new form of pedagogy. Jack took a moment to reflect. What exactly did technology offer that traditional classrooms didn't? The flexibility to access learning anytime. A platform that could encompass diverse voices. A digital landscape that bridged distances rather than highlighting divisions. With new energy coursing through him, he began to outline potential topics. He could tap into the careers his former students had ventured into, invite them as guest speakers, or even encourage them to chat about their struggles and victories. The thought ignited an idea, a potential series where they could spotlight the realities of life after education, revealing a spectrum of experiences. Jack's fingers flew over the keys, and the combination of passion and practicality transformed the document on screen into something that felt tangible, real, and connected. But doubts lurked like shadows in the back of his mind. Would they even want to participate? Would they remember him as fondly as he remembered them? If he failed, would he be returning to a void instead of a classroom filled with inspiration? The more he thought, the more he realized his effectiveness hinged not just on his reputation, but also on his willingness to be vulnerable, to embrace those challenges openly. With resolve, Jack picked up his phone once more and began crafting a group message. Hey everyone, I'm planning on something exciting, virtual discussions to reconnect and reflect on experiences since we last saw each other. I would love to involve all of you. He lowered the phone, the weight of anxiety registering in his chest. Just as he prepared to hit send, a thought struck him. Was he merely seeking validation? Would it be selfish to expect affirmation from those he had once nurtured? Jack hesitated, the questions swirling like the storm from the night before. But the conflict couldn't be ignored. It illuminated the heart of his journey, addressing not just his own insecurities, but stepping back into a mentorship role hinged on courage, on accepting rejection or success alike. Taking a deep breath, he pressed send. The message vanished into the digital ether, but its consequences felt monumental. Jack wasn't merely reaching for the approval of his past, he was striding into the uncertainty of his future. As the minutes ticked by, a buzzing burst of notifications suddenly filled the room. Jack's heart raced. What responses awaited? The need for reassurance was palpable, but the willingness to face the unknown was a testament to his growth. In that moment of anticipation, Jack knew he might not just be nurturing connections, but also reframing his own identity. In that moment of anticipation, Jack knew he might not just be nurturing connections, but also reframing his own identity. Each reply could either deepen his resolve or challenge it further. But what he didn't yet know was how the reactions would spiral him into a new and unforeseen transformation, an evolution he had not anticipated. Jack sat there, heart hammering as he awaited replies. The notifications came in bursts, crackling with potential, each ping like a spark igniting a corner of his anticipation. He opened the first message from Lily, her warmth cascading through the screen. "I'd love to be involved, Mr. Hurst. Can't wait to see how we can make this happen." The floodgates opened as students chimed in one after another. Some expressed eagerness, others gratitude. A few shared snippets about their current paths, echoing sentiments of nostalgia and hope. Jack realized with each response, these were more than just words. They were bridges being built back to a part of his life he thought had faded away. A sudden rush of connectedness swept over him. Perhaps he hadn't been searching for validation after all. It was deeper, an acknowledgement of the impact he had, intertwined with the lessons learned in shared vulnerabilities. The admiration from his students reflected back on him, illuminating facets of his character he had begun to dim after years of doubt. Jack felt a sense of mission forming amidst the chaos of notifications. He envisioned the powerful conversations that could flow from these digital gatherings. He pictured Lily speaking about her triumphant return to education and how others could share their journeys. Inspired by the set of responses, he opened another document titled Initial Speaker Lineup and started typing names alongside a handful of tentative topics each person might touch upon. As the ideas began proliferating, a new anxiety clenched in his chest. What if he couldn't meet their expectations? What if he fumbled during the actual event? His mind raced back to the classroom moments, those awkward pauses, unresponsive faces staring back at him, the struggles he faced to keep engagement alive amidst a sea of disinterest. But perhaps that was just it. Those moments had been invaluable tapestries woven into his teaching narrative. If he embraced challenges in the classroom, why was this significantly different? It was a new medium, true, but the essence remained. His passion for connectivity and learning hadn't diminished. It had evolved. He reflected on the whispers of vulnerability that had lingered, now transforming into a force of determination. Jack leaned back in his chair, inhaling deeply, realizing he needed to adopt an experimental mindset. This digital world was ripe with opportunity for growth, not just for his students, but for himself. Each misstep would be a lesson learned, every success celebrated together, a shared journey. His phone buzzed yet again, this time with a message from Mark, a student who had struggled during his senior year. "Hey, Mr. Hurst, I'd love to join and share how I turned things around. You always believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." Jack's heart swelled. There it was again, the power of mentorship. As he tapped his reply, thanking Mark for his willingness to contribute, it dawned on him. Perhaps he wasn't just helping others navigate their careers. He was aiding himself, too, in rediscovering the confidence that had made him an effective educator. Unsure of how produce this newfound balance, Jack made a promise to himself. He'd step into this digital space with authenticity. He would not shy away from the challenges ahead, but greet them with the same courage he once imparted to his students. Just as he sat back, relishing the idea of diving into this venture, a new notification seized his attention, a voicemail from an unknown number. Jack's heart thudded. Who could it be? Was it someone from the past? The unexpected nature of it pulled him into the same whirlpool of uncertainty, sparking exhilaration and trepidation all at once. He decided to press play, hardly aware of the revelations that awaited him, moments that could alter the course of his project and unveil a new layer of his own journey. The voicemail crackled to life, and a familiar yet distant voice emerged. "Jack, it's Rebecca. I hope it's okay that I reached out." Jack's pulse quickened, and he instinctively leaned closer to his phone. Rebecca had been one of his most passionate students, a bright spark in his otherwise tumultuous final years of teaching. She had a zest for learning, one that had faltered in the face of personal struggles. "Things have changed a lot since we last spoke," she continued, her tone weaving through a mix of nostalgia and uncertainty. "I found myself reflecting on the years in your class and how pivotal they were for me. I'm navigating a new path now, and," her voice faltered, a heavy pause charged with unsaid words. Jack's mind raced. What was she trying to convey? He leaned forward, craving more, her struggles, her triumphs, how she had morphed since graduation. As he awaited the continuation of her story, he felt an overwhelming urge to reciprocate the appreciation that so many students had shown him recently. But Rebecca's next words sent a chill through him. I wanted to reach out because I know you're trying to organize something with previous students. I have some experience that could be valuable, but I won't lie, I'm terrified of the idea. I'm still finding my footing. That confession struck a deep chord within Jack. Here was a young woman whose potential he once fostered, now wrestling with self-doubt, much like his own. The vulnerability resonated. He recognized that innate human fear, something that had haunted him as he hesitated to fully embrace his new journey. He thought of his worries about the expectations of students, the cycle of doubt that seemed almost universal, a mirror reflecting his own insecurities. "What if I'm not enough?" she whispered, her voice cracking just slightly. Jack felt an inexplicable urge to bridge that gap, to empower not just Rebecca, but himself too. "Rebecca," he breathed, interjecting before she could spiral further into doubt. "We've been navigating uncertainty our entire lives. This is just another chance to embrace it and learn together." He could feel the warmth in his words, genuine and supportive, and it fueled his own determination. His commitment solidified. If Rebecca was stepping out of her comfort zone, he could do no less. "How about we both bring our experiences to the table? Your story matters. Let's make sure others hear it." A long silence followed. Jack could almost hear the gears turning in her mind, a mixture of hope and trepidation. "You're right. I've spent too long in the shadows of self-doubt. I'll join you. Let's do this." As they wrapped up the call, relief washed over Jack. He could feel a palpable shift. Their shared uncertainty had sparked larger possibilities. This wasn't merely about an event or gathering. It was about confronting and redefining internal barriers, about tapping into hidden strengths. He felt more motivated to pour into this initiative, a dominant purpose igniting and refocusing his drive. He pulled up his notes again, trying to funnel that energy into creative ideas, deep conversations about resilience, overcoming fears, and the essence of finding strength through shared experiences. Just then, an unexpected notification popped up on his screen. Another message. Curiosity piqued. He opened it, only to be taken aback. It was from Helen, a student who'd faced significant challenges, someone whom he hadn't expected to hear from. "Mr. Hurst, I want to share my story of failure and resilience too, but can I meet with you first?" Jack's heart raced anew. Now he was faced not only with deepening connections from the past, but with the challenge of becoming a vessel for growth, not just for his students, but profoundly for himself. How could he balance this responsibility? The stakes were rising, and yet beneath the weight of expectations, he could feel the stirrings of hope. He was entering uncharted territory, one that would demand all the courage he could summon. As thoughts swirled, he realized that this was not just about guiding others anymore. It had transformed into an expedition of reclamation for himself. Clearing his throat, he pondered just how deeply each interaction might reshape his own narrative. But the inquiry loomed larger now, perhaps louder than ever. What new revelations awaited him behind Helen's desire to connect? Jack's breath hitched as he read Helen's message again, urgency sparking within. It was an offer to share her story, something deeper than he had anticipated. The prospect both excited and terrified him. What could she bring to this conversation? More importantly, what would it require of him? He had spent years navigating the complexities of his students' lives, often offering a guiding hand, but now he faced his own growing uncertainties. The idea of guiding Helen through her narrative felt like a monumental charge, one that hinged on him stepping into a role he had long clutched with ambivalence. After a moment of hesitation, he replied, suggesting they meet at a quaint cafe nearby, a neutral ground where vulnerability flourished alongside the rich aroma of coffee. He needed to prepare for this, to delve deeper than surface platitudes and provide the emotional support she might need. This encounter was as much about her discovery as it was about his own. As he gathered his notes and thoughts, Jack replayed the moments that had led to this burgeoning initiative. The calls with Rebecca and now Helen were openings into a past he thought he was ready to leave behind. Each interaction stirred old memories, but it also illuminated new paths forward. Arriving at the cafe, he found a corner booth, a cushy sanctuary amidst the bustling chatter. The world outside blurred, a reminder that sometimes one needed to create their own space to confront real, raw truths. He shifted in his seat, thoughts racing. Was he prepared for Helen's scars, the tangible evidence of her struggles? He could feel the weight of expectation pressing down on him. When Helen walked in, he noticed the uncertainty in her stride. It mirrored Rebecca's apprehension. She sat opposite him, and for a moment silence hung in the air, heavy with unspoken words. "Thank you for meeting me," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper, fissured with apprehension. "I wasn't sure you'd agree." "Of course," Jack replied, his heart warming. "I'm glad you reached out. We all have stories worth sharing, especially those that are difficult." The words felt almost foreign as he spoke them. He, too, was trying to convince himself. After a moment's pause, Helen nodded, visibly steeling herself. "I wanted to talk about how I fell apart after I graduated. I don't want to sound pathetic, but I really struggled with failure, with understanding my self-worth." Jack felt a pang of empathy, but also a subtle recognition. He had hidden his own failures under layers of resignation, burying them for years. Perhaps they could unearth these shared experiences together. "Helen, I believe discussing failure is crucial. It's not about how we fall, it's how we find the strength to rise again. Tell me more." He leaned in, genuinely invested, remembering the lessons he had taught countless other students. Those moments of connection had invoked revival in them, and perhaps within himself, too. She breathed deeply and began recounting tales of missed opportunities that had haunted her. Each word she spoke staggered Jack's sense of self-worth. For every confession Helen offered, another layer of his own inadequacy surfaced, clawing at his resolve. Could he really guide her through this? Courage surged within him, a shaky but undeniable force. This was no longer just Helen's story. It was becoming a conduit for his own healing. But then a whisper of doubt encroached upon his thoughts. Was he equipped to handle both their narratives unfolding simultaneously? As they discussed her challenges, especially moments that shaped her perception of failure, Jack recognized a pivotal realization. He was not alone in dwelling in the gray shadows of doubt. Each revelation pulled their narratives closer together, weaving a tapestry of shared human experience. But far from any comfort, a deeper question loomed. Could he transform these fraught exchanges into something that redefined their collective understanding of resilience and personal growth? Just then, Helen's phone buzzed, snapping them from their reverie. Her expression shifted, a blend of fear and anticipation. "It's my mother," she murmured, glancing at her screen. "I should take this." Jack's heart sank, sensing a thread of unresolved tension surfacing anew. What would this call reveal? Would it set back the progress they made, or would it catalyze a new turn in their discussion? As he watched Helen walk outside to take the call, uncertainty gripped him tight. Time seemed to stretch, and as the cafe buzzed around him, he couldn't shake the feeling that pivotal transformations were lurking just beyond the surface. What obstacles lay ahead in their revelations, and how deeply would their burdens intertwine? Would this moment lead to an empowering breakthrough or shatter the fragile connection they had started to forge? The door swung shut behind Helen, leaving Jack momentarily alone in their secluded booth. The chatter of the cafe receded as he sank into contemplation, his thoughts spiraling around the weight of the moment. He could still see the uncertainty etched on Helen's face, the trepidation that masked her desire to share. This encounter had started as a simple exchange, but now it felt like a pivotal point, both fragile and potent. He tapped his fingers on the table, recalling Helen's words about failure. It wasn't just her story anymore. It was a mirror reflecting his own long-buried feelings of inadequacy. The realization prompted him to dive deeper into his motivations. Why did he feel so compelled to help her? Was it simply a professional obligation, or was there something more at stake? Jack's heart thudded with a growing sense of urgency. He had a choice: accept the discomfort of facing his inadequacies or shy away from the confrontation. Time and time again, he had taught his students the importance of transparency and vulnerability. Could he now embody that wisdom? As he glanced toward the window, anxiety danced behind his ribcage. Helen's call dragged into the silence, and Jack was left with his own restless thoughts. He rifled through his notes, instinctively searching for structure amidst the emotional chaos. The outlines of Helen's potential storytelling flickered in his mind, yet he wondered if he was prepared to guide her through the dark alleys of her experience. Sensing the weight of the moment, he steadied his breathing. He remembered the importance of granting space. He couldn't rush her revelation. Every second felt like an eternity. In those moments of waiting, he began to reflect on his role not just as an educator, but as a fellow traveler in the landscape of human experience. What if this encounter emerged not from a place of authority, but rather one of shared vulnerability? Could he allow himself to peel back his own layers and connect with Helen more authentically? The stakes for both of them came into sharper focus, and Jack felt the familiar push of trepidation, grappling with the need to explore the unknown. When Helen finally re-entered the cafe, her expression was markedly different, a mixture of resolution and seeking. "Sorry about that," she said softly, reclaiming her seat. "Just a little family drama." Jack tilted his head slightly, sensing that whatever had transpired on the phone had shifted something within her. "I'm here to listen whenever you're ready," he encouraged, hoping to exude the warmth she needed. She nodded slowly, her eyes reflecting fragility mixed with emerging strength. "It's just hard to let go of the past. I told my mom I was meeting you to talk about everything, and as always, she reminded me that I shouldn't dwell in my own sadness." Jack absorbed her words, recognizing the familiar echoes of overbearing expectations that many caregivers often impose, always cloaked in the guise of concern. "It sounds as if those expectations make it challenging for you to express your feelings openly," he said, inviting her to delve deeper. Helen shifted in her seat. "It does. Sometimes I feel like I'm drowning in what others think I should be, rather than who I am. I had ambitions, dreams, but they crashed. I'm terrified of facing them again." As she spoke, Jack couldn't help but feel a connection deepening between them. Her fear resonated within him, competing with the urgency to create a safe space. How did they navigate these surfacing fears without losing themselves in the complexity of shared experiences? Jack leaned closer, drawn in by her honesty. This was a defining moment, not only for Helen, but also for himself, challenging his notion of what it meant to be a mentor. What if we think of it this way? He suggested gently. Instead of focusing on the dreams that crashed, we consider what those dreams represent for you now. What small steps can lead you out of that feeling of drowning? A spark ignited in Helen's eyes. The flicker of determination seemed to evolve as she pondered his words. I guess starting with acknowledging that my worth doesn't just come from achievements could be one. I've always thought I need to succeed to count. Jack felt a sense of accomplishment mixed with unease. Was this newfound determination just the beginning, or were deeper doubts about to shadow their discourse again? Suddenly, laughter erupted from the table behind them, breaking the contemplative bubble. Jack turned slightly, glancing back at Helen. "What's next for you?" he prompted, keen to maintain the momentum of their discussion. As Helen began to respond, Jack noticed a flicker of uncertainty return to her gaze, as if a wall was rising within. What was she retreating from now? Would this discussion illuminate her path forward or lead them into even deeper waters where more dilemmas awaited? He felt a knot tighten in his stomach, unsure of what threads might unravel as they both emerged from this exchange. Would they together dismantle the fortress of fear that had constrained them so long? Jack braced himself for whatever lay ahead, ready to engage, to discover, and to empower. But he couldn't shake the feeling that the real challenge was just beginning. What new threshold would they face on this journey of vulnerability? As Helen struggled to articulate her thoughts, Jack sensed the tension thickening between them, almost palpable. She looked away, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of the tablecloth, a subtle sign that her confidence was wavering. It unnerved him. How could he ease her back from this precipice of uncertainty where past failures loom like shadows ready to engulf her? "Helen," he ventured, his voice steady but soft, "can you share what those ambitions mean to you today? What do they evoke?" She tilted her head as if his question had momentarily broken through the fog of self-doubt. "They remind me of a version of me that felt alive, vibrant. Before the doubt crept in, there was this fire. I wanted to write, to create stories that mattered." Jack leaned back slightly, absorbing her words. This was not merely about hollow ambitions. This was about identity, a truer essence of herself that had become lost in the expectations of others. "What do you think extinguished that fire?" "The voices," she whispered, almost defeated. "The voices telling me to play it safe, to conform, to stop dreaming." The flicker of frustration in her eyes resurfaced, and Jack could see how deeply the scars of those judgments were etched on her psyche. "Those voices can be sinister, can't they?" he replied, a hint of iron in his tone. "What if we mute them, even for a moment? Can you allow yourself to explore what it would mean to pursue that fire again?" A profound silence enveloped their booth, punctuated only by the hum of cafe life around them. Jack's heart raced. He wondered if he was reaching her, or if he was standing on the edge of a chasm that neither of them was prepared to leap across. Helen's brow furrowed as a battle of thoughts played out on her features. I worry about failing again, Jack. I don't want to feel like I've wasted another chance." He leaned in closer, desperate to connect. "But what if we reframe failure? What if it's not the end, but merely a stepping stone? Every great story has those moments of conflict that shape the hero. Are we not supposed to be the hero of our own lives?" she shot back, suddenly spirited but shaky. "Yes, we should be," Jack exclaimed, encouraged by the resurgence of her voice. "But heroes face adversity. It's how they grow." Her eyes sparkled with a mix of defiance and desperation. "Then how do I face it? How do I confront those voices without drowning in them?" This was it, the moment of clarity they both needed. Jack felt a rush of inspiration. "Use them, Helen. Let them drive your expression. turn your fear into your pen? What if you wrote a story, one that captured your journey through this maze of expectations? Her expression shifted, contemplation intertwining with intrigue. Write a story? Yes, document your process. Make it real. Don't let it just live in your head. He paused, aware of the immense weight of what he was proposing. Share your vulnerabilities. It might just be the release you crave. Helen bit her lip, a nervous habit that betrayed her swirling emotions. What if I'm not good enough? Who determines good enough? You have an authentic voice waiting to be unleashed. Be the storyteller of your truth. It might surprise you, maybe even liberate you, he encouraged, his heart racing with the possibility of her taking that leap. After a beat, she nodded slowly, a resolution blossoming among the shadows of self-doubt. Jack could sense she was on the brink of transformation, a shift from paralyzing uncertainty to tentative determination, but the fissures of vulnerability remained. And then, just as the light began to filter through the cracks, their conversation was interrupted by the buzz of Jack's phone on the table. He glanced at the screen. It was a message from his wife, one that instantly clawed at his heart. He hesitated, aware that this disruption could derail everything they were building. The familiar pang of responsibility wrapped around him, reminding him of the other life he had yet to confront, the very one he had been running from, filled with its own failures and unfulfilled dreams. "Jack, are you all right?" Helen inquired softly, reading the change in his demeanor. He looked up, masking the turmoil beneath the surface. "I'm fine, just a message." The words hung in the air, a barrier between them built from his unshared fears. As he considered the choice between attending to his own unresolved issues or deepening his support for Helen, doubt flickered in his mind. Could he truly be the mentor she needed if he was grappling with his insecurities? "Listen, Helen, I think we should explore more methods of expressing those emotions you hold so close," he said, trying to redirect the focus back on her, even as thoughts of his own struggles berated his mind. But deep down, Jack realized that their journeys were intertwined. Would he muster the courage to face his own fears and embrace the messiness that connection demanded, just as he urged Helen to do? What haunting truth awaited him in the unresolved narrative of his life? Just as the path began to clear between them, Jack felt the undeniable tension of his own looming decisions weighing like an anchor. Tomorrow would demand not just his guidance of Helen through her fears, but also a confrontation of his personal demons. Would he embrace the vulnerability he so championed, or retreat into the familiar shadows of doubt? Helen sat quietly, the conversation hanging in the air like a fragile promise. She felt a stir of excitement mixed with an undercurrent of fear. The thought of putting her feelings into words, of sharing her journey with the world, radiated a warmth she had long forgotten. Yet, just as quickly, the icy fingers of doubt crept in. What if her words failed to resonate? Suddenly, she felt an urge to retreat behind the safety of silence. Jack's phone buzzed again, reminding her of the looming shadows that could overshadow this moment. Each notification felt like an unwelcome reminder of responsibilities, as if the world outside the cafe held their pasts in its grip, a past filled with unrealized potential. "Helen," Jack said gently, drawing her focus back, "can we start with something small? What's the one story that's been waiting for you to tell?" His eyes bore into hers, steady and expectant, anchoring her to the present. She hesitated, her heart pounding in her ears. There's a story about my grandmother," she finally blurted out, the words surprising even her. She was a fierce storyteller, always weaving tales of her youth, of her struggles and dreams. I remember thinking how brave she was, how her stories were a testament to her strength. Jack leaned forward, intrigued. What did you learn from her? Helen inhaled deeply, memories flooding back. She faced so many challenges, yet found ways to express her fears and dreams. She taught me that our past doesn't define us, but our response to it does. The realization hit Helen like a bolt of lightning. I've been so focused on my own fears that I forgot the lessons she imparted. A spark of determination ignited in her. It was time to sift through the dusty corners of her mind and redefine her narrative. Then there's your fire, Jack affirmed, the tension between them transforming into a palpable current of energy. You're the protagonist in this story, Helen. You have the power to rewrite how you perceive your journey. Suddenly, she caught a glimpse of a potential future, one where her voice could echo not just for herself, but for others who felt smothered by their own shadows. What if I shared her stories? She mused aloud. What if I wrote about how she inspired me to confront my fears? That's it, Jack exclaimed, his enthusiasm forging a bridge of shared aspiration. Document your process, explore your roots, let her story catalyze your own growth. Your writing doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be honest. An invigorating wave of courage surged through her. The fear was still present, but now it felt more like a companion urging her forward rather than a tyrant holding her back. Helen started to scribble notes on napkins, ideas bubbling over like a simmering pot. As the minutes ticked by, Jack noticed the transformation in her demeanor. She was no longer a flickering candle, but a steadfast flame. Each word she wrote seemed to breathe life into her spirit. Still, beneath this determination lingered a shadow, a sense of trepidation about actually following through. Jack's own unease surged to the surface. The nagging message from his wife loomed large in his mind, creating a discord with the growing clarity Helen was finding. Could he assist her in forging her path to self-discovery while his own life waited in limbo? Helen, he began, steeling himself for an internal battle. What if we both committed to this, a shared journey of sort? You write, and I'll work through some of my own stories. We're both on the cusp of something significant, aren't we? Her eyes met his, confusion swimming amidst her budding excitement. You too? But you've been guiding me. Mentoring only makes sense if one is willing to step into their own growth, he said. I can't ask you to confront your fears without doing the same for myself. It's time to face the blank pages of my chapter as well. The weight of his admission hung between them, a charged invitation to acknowledge their mutual struggles. Helen nodded slowly, understanding the profound connection budding between them. She smiled, empowering her voice. Then let's do it together. We'll be our own champions, pushing each other to face that fear. As Jack felt the layers of his own anguish crack under the liberating force of Helen's acceptance, it became clear that they were embarking not just upon separate journeys, but an intertwining path toward authenticity and expression. Yet, just when clarity seemed to prevail, the anxiety of his unresolved responsibilities punctured the budding momentum. The next step loomed daunting. Would he witness the blossoming of Helen's potential while wrestling with his own dark corners? The knowledge that tomorrow would require transparency and authenticity loomed ahead. Would he harness the courage to face the narrative of his life, or would he remain ensnared in the web of his past? The answer awaited him, just beyond the horizon. The sun rose the following morning, casting a golden light through the window where Jack Thompson sat, fingers poised over his keyboard. The light illuminated the scattered notes, half-formed ideas of webinars, and reflections on his own life swirling around him in the crisp morning air. Yesterday's conversation with Helen had forged an unexpected resolve within him, a determination not just to facilitate growth for her, but to reclaim his own sense of value. Today would be the day he transformed that resolve into concrete actions, an affirmation of his commitment to rediscover his path in the world of education. He drew a deep breath, recalling the spark he felt during their discussion. They were both standing at a precipice, shouting back into an echoing abyss of doubt and fear. What stories still lingered in his own narrative, waiting patiently for expression? He began typing, allowing the words to flow unfiltered. When I think of resilience, I am reminded of my own journey, a journey marked with uncertainties, yet rife with opportunities for reinvention. Each keystroke tapped into a reservoir of lessons learned, moments that defined his tenure as a teacher, and the collective growth of his students. He wrote about the mistakes he made, the times he struggled to connect with his students, and the shortcomings that often haunted him. This was not just a reflection, it was a declaration that failure had been an integral stepping stone in his quest for purpose. Hours slipped by as he crafted an outline for his upcoming webinars, Rekindling Your Spark, Embracing Growth in a Digital Age. Each topic resonated with the students he had inspired over the years and with those he hoped to connect with now. There was empowerment in acknowledging vulnerability, the acknowledgement that it was okay to not have all the answers. He felt invigorated as he finished the initial draft and hit send on an email to his former students, inviting them to join him in a collaborative storytelling journey where they could voice their experiences overcoming obstacles, much like he was now determined to do. He introduced Helen's story as a central theme, emphasizing shared growth and vulnerability. Together, we shall unravel our challenges and triumphs, one conversation at a time. The responses flooded in like a rushing river. Excitement surged within him as students expressed anticipation and gratitude. His heart raced not only with their enthusiasm, but with an emerging understanding that he was no longer a solitary figure in the landscape of education. This was a community. This was support. Days turned into weeks, and each gathering was an opportunity to reinforce the newfound camaraderie. Jack felt a tide of validation as his former students shared their evolution, each adding rich narrative layers that intertwined with his. Helen, too, blossomed. Her story about her grandmother emerged as a powerful thematic thread. In each session, she contributed her insights with growing confidence, demonstrating the beauty of connection through storytelling. Jack recognized with deep satisfaction how his attempt to nurture students' growth transformed into a personal journey, a reclamation of his own voice. Recognition arrived unexpectedly when an online educational platform reached out to him, intrigued by the successes of his webinars. They expressed interest in highlighting his team's initiative as a model for digital learning, acknowledging the pioneering conversations he both initiated and facilitated. It was a tangible recognition of the competence and confidence he had feared lost. Jack's heart swelled with pride. Here was validation manifesting not just from his past, but resonating into the present. This was a turning point, a triumph born of both his and his students' vulnerabilities. Weeks later, the webinars culminated into a digital symposium, something he once thought impossible. Jack stood in front of his computer, a satisfied smile breaking across his face as he reflected on the journey they collectively forged. He looked around the virtual room, filled with bright and eager faces. His students, his colleagues, and even his granddaughter, Lily, who beamed from the front row. That night, amidst the laughter and shared stories, Jack experienced an epiphany. He had not just reclaimed his relevance, but had also reinforced connections with those who once inspired him. He proved to himself that inner growth could arise from navigating uncertainty. He had achieved his aspiration, a solid confidence established through recognition and authentic connection. As the last session drew to a close, Jack raised a glass in a toast, words bubbling forth. To reinvention, to growth, and to the stories shared. The cheers filled his heart with joy. This was a moment where he truly felt fulfilled, not just as an educator, but as a human being embracing the beauty of change. Reinvigorated, he felt a proud sense of accomplishment wash over him. It wasn't just about being a teacher, it was about becoming a learner alongside his students. He had demonstrated that vulnerability could be a source of strength, one of many seeds planted in the soil of their shared experiences. It was now clear to him this was just the beginning. Embracing transformation had brought him more than recognition. He had woven his legacy anew, successfully intertwining the narratives of past and future. Now was the moment to share not just his ending, but a vibrant starting point for others yearning for their own transformative journeys. At this crucial juncture, I urge you, subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of nurturing growth through action.